not coming all the way across with at least 2 tires on it. So the 2-tire rule caught him. The Chevrolet advances on.
All right, and back to live action. Here comes the bad luck kid lately, Mike Witt out of Mount Washington. Stomper taking on John Moore, the veteran out of Lafayette, Tennessee, and no problem. Mike may be having a string of bad luck, but he's still known as one of the up-and-coming rising stars.
He's definitely one of the best drivers in the Monster Truck Tour. They do a lot of experimenting with the drivetrain. He runs a dragster-style clutch here. You notice how the truck had a tendency to come on late. But look, John Moore puts him away. That's got to be a highlight of his year. No problem for it. Richard finally got to the Stomper Chevrolet.
So John Moore, the veteran of 4 years on this Renegade circuit, moves to the quarterfinals, and so do we. Opening round, it's going to be Steve Dane and Awesome Kong taking on the Barbarian.
Texas. This one's for you.
This one's for you, he says. Go Texas. Steve Dane out of Killeen, Texas. He has won 4 events in a row, Army, trying to make it an unprecedented 5th in a row tonight, and he takes on the Barbarian, who returns as a fast loser.
Richard, it's kind of interesting. In the first year of the National Tour, the Renegade Tour, these fellas are starting to develop so much of a crowd following, and Awesome Kong, believe me, has got to be right up there at the top. Everybody's starting to like this kid out of Texas, not because he wins. That's involved in it, but he's just a good kid. But
Army,
right now,
he's dead at the line. Awesome Kong is out of it. The Barbarian is going to win. What bad luck for Steve Dane and Awesome Kong, Army.
Richard, the automatic transmission that took him 4 straight wins gave away in the Hoosier Dome.
So the winning streak of Steve the Great Dane has ended in Indianapolis. And Army, I understand he's not the only one with problems. You found something out on the USA 1 machine.
Well, Richard, just a moment ago we were talking to Rod Litzow. He said everything's going perfect with the USA 1 Chevrolet. Got in the truck, he went back to the starting line. We noticed the transfer case on the vehicle must be broken. Somebody needs to let him know. Things are not quite as good in the USA 1 camp as they think they are. Back to you.
Oh, we're ready to continue quarterfinal round competition. It's going to be no problem. The Ford Bronco of John Moore taking on Jim Kramer and Bigfoot. And Army, I understand that these two guys are working together to put new trucks together for 1989.
Now, Jim Kramer is doing a lot of research and development. John Moore, as you said, he's kind of the old pro of the tour. Kind of the low buck guy on the tour. He's teamed up with Bigfoot. They're going to try to put Fords in that winner's circle next year.
Well, of course, Kramer, when you think monster truck and Bigfoot, you think of Kramer. It looks like an easy win for him.
Yeah, but John Moore, if you'll remember, Richard, the last couple of weeks has really started leaning on his equipment. I look for a Super 89 out of that young man out of Tennessee.
John Moore, 44 years old. Jim Kramer, 37. 2 veterans on this Renegade's TNT Monster Truck circuit. Watch for both of them to be back in later competition. Meanwhile, Dave Wysork, the kid out of Nebraska that's making a name for himself, taking on another veteran as Wild Hare and one half of the Breen Brothers operation comes back to the line.
Bobby Breen will be working a left track. The engine located behind the driver. A unique part of that truck. It's an experimental truck. Meanwhile, Nightlife, relying on horsepower, working the right side of the track, comes onto the circuit and puts Breen away, but what a ride.
Nice win by Dave Wysork. Nightlife out of Nebraska puts away the Breen brother, and we're going to come back with more electrifying, spectacular monster truck racing as quarterfinal action continues in a moment on Powertrax and ESPN. Dome, Indianapolis quarterfinal round competition. 2 guys coming to the line next, both with mechanical problems. Mike Witt, Stomper 1, Rod Litzow, USA 1.
Witt with a Stomper, had some fueling problems a little bit earlier. They'll be keeping an eye on that. They're off and running. Litzow, no problem, he says, with the oil leak we found. Litzow goes out for the win, but
Stomper has blown it, Army.
Completely lost an engine, about a $20,000 pop for Michael Buckwheat Witt in that Stomper Chevrolet.
Buckwheat.
His nickname, has called him that for years.
Okay, well, the bad luck continues for Mike Witt as he is out of the competition in Indianapolis. Meanwhile, Rod Litzow looked like he had no problems whatsoever with the USA 1 machine, and this could bring up an interesting final. That's a possibility. USA 1 goes against Bigfoot. Let's go trackside with Army.
Well, right now, it looks like you and Bigfoot are working your way to getting maybe into the final of this thing. Can you put him away tonight?
Well, I'm going to do my best. We're running some faster times. We're getting better used to the track, and he's running that side, and I like my side. It's going to be a good race.
Well, Army, we're going to take a look at a replay of that run by Stomper 1, Mike Witt, and Rod Litzow with USA 1. And I'll tell you what, when you want to talk mechanical problems, call Mr. Witt up on the telephone. I think everything has happened to him over the last few months.
What it is, Mike Witt and Gail Medford with the Stomper Chevrolet, they're experimenting with a new transmission, if you will. It's a dragster style. You have to really RPM the engine, and the engine just went away. They took it too high on the RPM and let go. They've learned something. They're going to come back. I still believe in these guys in that Chevrolet truck. I think they're going to be in the thick of it for 89.
And another guy that's going to be in thick of it for 89 is Jim Kramer. He's driven a monster truck longer than anybody, and he's got some new things coming for Bigfoot. Army spent time with him earlier.
Jim, the sport when it started to today, can you sum it up for us real quick?
Well, it's really progressing more quickly than I even thought. It's had a very slow beginning, of course. We used to just display the trucks and then just barely drive over cars, and now it's to an all-out racing, and it's just we're just scratching the surface in the racing field. I think we're going to see a lot more refined, more powerful trucks, a lot faster speeds.
This year, a Chevrolet took the win. I know you and Bob Tanner are not going to sit still for that. What do we have down the road for the Bigfoot trucks as far as engineering and development?
Oh, we're doing a lot of engineering right now and some development of certain components to make that truck happen in the future. We've got 3 different designs. We don't know which one yet will best suit us, and that's going to take a little more R&D because we're going to try to take a giant leap forward and see what happens. So the truck we bring out is going to be something really different.
Well, Army, I'll tell you what, I cannot wait till our opening show of 1989, St. Paul, Minnesota, to see the new Bigfoot truck with Jim Kramer. He's taking on the Barbarian right now, and Jim Miller in the semifinals.
Miller comes out against Bigfoot, but look, Kramer, Richard, it looks like he actually flies this truck. He just has a soft touch about him, but he's going to the final.
Jim Kramer moves to the championship round, a place he knows very well. Last year, he was in the championship round. The year before the championship round, but he did not fare so well the past 2 years as we see a replay of this race against the Barbarian, and look at how much air he gets between him and the junk cars.
He not only gets a lot of air, he gets a lot of distance. Notice he does go high, but look how far out he goes. That's an indication of a tremendous amount of ground speed, Richard.
Well, I was talking about Jim Kramer not faring too well in 1986 and 87 in the Hoosier Dome in the finals. Army, I know you were here both times.
Kramer came out in the final. They knew they had the front wheel drive out. Now remember, front wheels on these trucks are so important because if you nose over, you can gas it and the front wheels will pull you out. Kramer, as the screen shows, he's to your left, going against a Texas toy. He came out real good. The truck started to bounce a little bit on him. The problem came when he tried to land. He gassed it right here. Look at the air. Now the front end noses over, but he has no power to pull it out. The front end's gone. Kramer nails it over 2 years in a row. This year he's trying to turn that luck around, Richard.
And Army, that has got to be in the back of his mind what's happened the past 2 years here, though.
I agree with you. Earlier this afternoon, he wouldn't say anything, but he kind of had a little grin on his face.
Well, who is going to face Bigfoot? One of these 2 guys, either Rod Litzow and USA 1, your national champion, or a kid that's been running hot lately, Dave Weissort and Nightlife.
Weissort comes into this run, has to be considered the underdog. The dream race would be USA 1 against Bigfoot. People that bought the ticket would love to see that, but Weissort would like to be in there against Bigfoot. Not going to be the case. USA 1 and Bigfoot. The dream final is set up, Richard.
But a good race by Dave Weissort as he gave Rod Litzow all he could handle. USA 1, though, makes it to the championship round, and we have got that dream match that you and all the fans wanted. Chevrolet goes up against Ford. We'll crown the king of monster truck racing when we come back on Powertrax. Up with TNT Motorsports in the wintertime. On the weekend of January 6th through the 8th, Chevy Trucks brings the Redman TNT All-American Pulling Series to the Ocean Center, Daytona Beach, Florida. The Lee County Civic Center, Fort Myers, Florida. The Charleston Civic Center, Charleston, West Virginia. And the Centroplex in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. On the weekend of January 13th through the 15th, the truck and tractor pulling action can be found in the Roanoke Civic Center, Roanoke, Virginia. The Omni in Atlanta, Georgia, and Freeman Coliseum in San Antonio, Texas. The big trucks will race side by side this winter when the Renegade TNT Monster Truck Challenge visits the St. Paul Civic Center, St. Paul, Minnesota, January 6th through the 7th, and the Leon County Civic Center in Tallahassee, Florida, January 13th and 14th. TNT Motorsports is proud to bring the nation's best truck and tractor pulling and monster racing to your hometown. See you there. We are in Indianapolis, Indiana, the Hoosier Dome, where well over 31,000 are enjoying this Renegades TNT Monster Truck Nationals, and we are getting set up for the championship round. Chevrolet, USA 1, and Rod Litzow, your national champion, don't forget, against Bigfoot and Jim Kramer. But right now it's time for the Renegades TNT Monster Truck Challenge Question of the Week. This week's question of the week comes from Billy Gavin out of Minneapolis, Minnesota. And Billy wants to know, what type safety equipment do the monster truck drivers wear while they compete? With us is Rod Litzow, the driver of the USA 1 machine, the 1988 Renegades TNT National Champion. And Rod, you can pretty well explain some of the safety paraphernalia you have.
Well, we start out, we have a full crash helmet that we wear, and then we have a neck brace that keeps our heads from bobbing around. And then we have a full fire suit with a kidney belt from the bouncing the kidneys take.
All right, so Billy, you can see no matter what motorsports event it might be, safety always comes first. And if you have a question of the week, send it to TNT Motorsports, 5515 Poplar Park Boulevard, Louisville, Kentucky, 40228. And if we use your question on a future ESPN broadcast, we'll send you an absolutely free TNT Motorsports racing hat. We are back to live action, and look at this, a changed twist of fate. That is USA 1 owner Everett Jasmer. They've got damage on that machine. Here's Army.
Richard, the problem seems to be the front drive shaft. It was bent on the previous run. Now, Everett Jasmer, the owner and designer of the vehicle, I don't know if they're going to get back in this thing. We're keeping an eye on the track officials to find out. Everything else looks good, but the front drive shaft is bent. We could tell a moment ago when they were moving, it was slopping around. Back up to you, Richard.
All right, Army, let's find out if we can hear from Jasmer himself if they plan on running the finals here.
Yeah, can you confirm that?
Yes.
All right, so Army is just like it was all during 1988. USA 1, the Chevrolet, against the Ford Bigfoot in the final for all the marbles in the Hoosier Dome. Only there's a new twist with the USA 1 machine.
Well, there's two new twists. Number one, the USA 1 is only going to have two-wheel drive. I don't know how safe that is. Number two, Jim Kramer is going to be driving the Bigfoot truck. So the big guns in the Bigfoot trying to put that USA 1 Chevrolet away, Richard.
And so your selection for the win?
Bigfoot.
And I'm going to agree with Army. Let's find out as we're ready for the finals in the Hoosier Dome. All right, Army, here we go. Ford, Bigfoot, Chevrolet, USA 1, they're off and rolling.
Whole shot by the Bigfoot truck. Kramer's going to take a win, and Rod Litzow, a smart drive. Two-wheel drive only. He didn't tear up any equipment. We will see that battle again in 1989, I'll guarantee you, Richard.
All right, so Jim Kramer finishes 1988 on a winning note in the Hoosier Dome.
First of all, we're going to congratulate Jim Kramer on a super job of driving out there, Jim.
Well, it got really squirrely, and I saw shades of last year and the year before, and I thought, this can't happen to me again.
What he's talking about on this weekend for the last 2 years, he's been on his head. Next year, this is over. This is 1988. We wrap it up. We put a bow on it. But we're coming out in a little bit for 1989. Is Bigfoot going to be making any changes? We're still trying to pump you for some information here.
You'll see a Bigfoot out here with drastic changes, I tell you. It'd be a lot lighter, a lot faster, a lot more motor, a lot more agile. And it's going to be something to see.
Okay, so actually we had three big stories tonight. Number one, Steve Dane, an Awesome Kong. His winning streak ended at 4 in a row. He broke in the quarterfinals. Story number two, USA 1 got to the finals, but he got there limping to the starting line. He broke his front-wheel drive. He raced in the finals with only two-wheel drive, and that brought the win to Bigfoot. So story number three is Jim Kramer and Bigfoot starting their big comeback for 1989. For Army Armstrong, I'm Richard Lake. We'll see you again on the tracks across America. Join us next time for Powertrax, the most powerful sport on earth.
Brought to you by TNT Motorsports, the nation's leader in pulling and monster truck racing.